moment to introduce themselves. They're going to be talking a little bit about their name, their role, organizations, how many years they've served in this role or at their organization, talking a little bit about the structure of their team, how many people do they have, and what type of areas do they serve. And then I told them I was going to give them a little special question that they were not going to know about. And that question is, what was the last movie that you saw in a theater? Okay. So I'm throwing you a curveball. Go ahead.
I'm Erin, Easterling. I'm from Purdue. Engineering. There are a bunch of us here because we're a big team. So the way we have 13 schools and programs within engineering at Purdue, so it's very large. At our central, I work in the central office under the dean. So I work with the communications director for the whole college. Our college has, each of the schools within the college has its own communicator with varying degrees of experience and specialties. Some of them are video people, some of them might be an admin assistant, and some of them are professional communicators that are in that role, but there's someone designated for each of those schools within the college to be doing communication. Our team is, I've been on the team, it'll be 4 years in December. When I started, there was just the communications director and a social media person. Now we have a team of 8 and several freelancers that work for us. We have 4 on our web team. We were not just a web team when I started, and we kind of absorbed the web team. The web was in part of our computer team, and they were off in another building, and it kind of made sense to bring the web team into the whole communications because it's more about function instead of communicating. I started, and then we have a graphic designer, a project manager. Myself, I do video, and now I'm doing social media, but we are looking to hire a full-time social media person, so we will be expanding even more. And what am I missing on structure? So what my role is doing, I also am the liaison between our office and the engineering writer that's at the university level of news. And so I partner with her to make sure she gets any kind of media that she's missing. She does also work with our communicators in the schools if she has a good connection with them. Some of the communicators have video skills. If they do not have video skills, I often partner with that communicator to make a video to go with the news release. The last movie I saw was just the secret I saw, Spider-Man. With my daughters. Yeah.
Secret Life of Pets 2. Pat Oswalt killed this little pup. So anyway, my name's Paul Alongi. I'm from Clemson University. The name of our college is the College for Engineering, Computing, and Applied Science. It's kind of a mouthful. I just say engineering college most of the time. But quick overview, we've got 7,000 students. We've got about a third of the students at Clemson and about half the research up. So in our shop, we have 7 people. We have 3 graphic designers, someone who takes care of the web, and we've got me, I'm the features, and they call me the features and technical writer, and then my boss, Ron Grant, kind of oversees the whole thing and does a lot of events, to run a show and that kind of thing. Let's see, what am I missing in terms of overview? Oh, yes. Right, so we have 12 departments in the college, and kind of the same thing what Erin said, there's, varying degrees of sort of knowledge and expertise there. In some cases, it's kind of an admin, sort of posting stuff on the side when he or she has time. And then in some cases, there's like an intern or someone with a little bit of media or background experience. So I think that's it.
Hi everybody, my name is Lisa Francesca. I'm from San Jose State University in California. It's possible that I saw a movie and just don't remember because it was not memorable, but the last memorable movie I saw was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Oh, awesome movie. So San Jose State, our Charles Davidson College of Engineering serves 7,000 students. We have about 400 faculty, 13 departments, and I am the communications department. I'm Director of Communications. I was hired on about 3 years ago as the communications specialist. My boss was both communications director and the dean's executive assistant. And so when she left, they couldn't really find that unicorn again. So I grew into my role in this last year, and they hired on an executive assistant for the dean. And I rely on a part-time student assistant. So far, the student assistants have been, because we hire them and then they graduate. The student assistant tends to build the weekly student e-newsletter that we have, and be the guru of social media, although I fill in when the student assistant is in finals or sick or something happens to them or their family or things like that. Things happen a lot. The dean's team includes a web designer, webmaster, but I go ahead and write and post my own web stories, and sometimes I'll ask them to come make it look better. I also write e-newsletters to our faculty and staff once or twice a semester, to our alumni once or twice a semester, to our industry partners once or twice a semester. I write and produce our print magazine once a semester. I do send out the design for that, and I write the dean's remarks. And that's pretty much all I can remember, although I do sometimes make short videos using my phone.
Good morning, I'm Keith Pierce. I am the Director of Communications and Marketing for the College of Engineering and Technology at Old Dominion University, and you're looking at my team. Actually, I do have a part-time grad student, and that's about it. My last movie was Bohemian Rhapsody. Was a great movie. I've only been in my role for 2 years, actually 2 years this month, and I do a little bit of everything because except web, I shouldn't say that, I do web, but the university's web at Old Dominion is centralized, which I didn't like at first because I came from another university where I did the website and had control, and I didn't like not having control. But when you're a one-person shop, it turned into a very good thing that we have a centralized web team at the university, which is actually very good. So I'm happy with that. So other than post things and edit, I don't have to worry about designing the web. I think I answered all the questions.
You did so very nicely. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and jump in then. We're going to start kind of broad, and then we'll really kind of narrow down into some of the details. So the first question that we want to ask is, what is the most significant benefit and the limitation to being either a small or a large group? Erin, want to go ahead and start?
I think being a large group, it means that you have some resources available to you, but then I think that there are things that are asked that we, even though we seem like a big team, that we might not be able to handle in some cases. Like we have a large, I would say we have a large team, but we don't have a full-time photographer. So all our photography comes from freelancers or a student if we can get one. And then we don't have someone ready to craft those kind of creatives. So I think that it might seem like, and we have an amazing graphic designer, but you know, she's not taking photography because she's doing graphic design. So we're still, might seem like it's large, but you're relying on filling in some holes. So, but I think that because we do have a lot of different variety of skill sets within our team, that it gives us some strengths that maybe a smaller team might not have. And then we get asked to do more because of our larger size. Maybe small has some advantages in that. There's only a certain set of things that you can handle on your list. So.
Yeah, it's a lot the same with us. We have the resources. I forgot to mention earlier, we have a videographer. So we do video, we manage the college's social media, we put out a magazine twice a year, we put out a monthly newsletter, we do press releases, we reach out to the media, we organize events. I mean, so that would be sort of the advantage to having a large team. We've got all the resources to do that. I guess the limitation, and I think what you're going to find from in the questions that are coming up, is that we're just now starting to, we've grown quickly, we're starting to figure out how to organize all this stuff. So that would I used to be able to shout across the hall, hey, I'm doing this, and the guy would say, okay, that sounds good, and that was it. That was all the coordination we needed. I think I better stop.
I think the benefit to being small is I can move fast and get things done, as long as I remember to get the dean's sign off when I need to, and get things proofed before they go out. And also, I walk the halls a lot, and so the faculty recognize me now. I keep popping up at chair meetings and stuff and saying, I need your news, and now they know that there's one person who needs their news, and they come to me. So the drawback is that I will never get to inbox 0, ever. And there's just so much to do, and I realize my time is split between the very private work of producing the writing, producing the product, and I need quiet and solitude to do that. But then I also kind of need to be getting all the incoming and showing up at meetings. So a day in hell for me is a day with like more than 4 meetings. And at this moment, I have like, I've done 3 or 4 interviews that I'm dying to get down on paper, and that's also kind of hellish for me. Can't wait to just spill those on the plane home and get those out of my brain.
I'm going to agree that being small does have one advantage, and that is you are the go-to person. I don't have a team, but I didn't mention earlier that our college is about 3,200 students. The university is only 25,000 or so. About 3,200 students when you only have one communications person who's doing everything from photography and videography and writing stories and pitching media. I have no sympathy for people with a large team. At all, sorry. But that is an advantage, but it's also very important when you are a smaller shop to try to carve out time for relationships in the departments, because I, like my colleague here, spent a lot of time establishing a rapport with our chairs and educating them on what I can do for them, but also educating on them what I can't do for them. And that became very important, and they respect what I've been able to produce in a small amount of time.
Great. So just 10 years ago, telling our story was just a very different process, especially when it was coming to media relations, where you have a story, you write a press release, you put it out there, someone writes about it, and that's it. These days, it's obviously very different, especially with the introduction of digital communications and social media. So these days, we're not just putting a story out there, but we are also making that a much longer time frame where we're engaging with our audiences, and there's a lot more work involved in not just that traditional media. So can we talk a little bit about how we determine digital strategies, whether you're a large team or a small team, and how does that differ?
I do want to say one thing. Michigan was here last year. Is anyone from University of Michigan here? They're not here this year. They had 30 people on their team, and we were jealous. So we were like, can't we be more like Michigan? So I know that our strategy, the things that I do when I'm trying to promote university research or a project, usually we rely on people in the news service who are doing media relations to make a determination on whether that's something that's going to be pitched nationally or locally. And so I often trust my engineering writer. We have one person completely dedicated to doing engineering stories in the news service at the university level. There is one person dedicated to media relations externally and who also does STEM stories. And so kind of split between College of Science and engineering, and then also some of the human health college. And then we have another person who's also half kind of engineering and does kind of lighter, not heavier research stories. So I would say we have 1 and 2 halves but if the visuals aren't there, we can't make it. We also don't have an animator, which is something I want to. And I want a scientific illustrator, which would also help. These are things that would make things, but they realize that they're wanting this and they're hiring out. So this is the first year that I've heard from the news service that they were going to hire scientific illustrators if the story warrants it and they think it's going to do well enough in the media. But my approach usually is this: I get asked, "Hey, Erin, can you work on video with this?" And so the writer will write a story. I will go partner and go do a video piece. I create a YouTube video for our YouTube channel that gets embedded in the news release when it goes out. I make a Google Drive that has B-roll, has the photographer photos in it. We've also been asked to make animated kit files, and so I put those in there. And then I do social text as well. So I'm doing shorter versions of the YouTube video for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I also make a different cut for Instagram and Square. So I feel like my process has gotten a lot bigger in how I'm trying to do customized format. I feel like it's more successful that way. I do know that Instagram video will work in Twitter. Twitter doesn't like square photos, but likes square video. So I'm with that. So I'm just trying to figure out how to be efficient in that and do that approach. And then we share all of that across our social media. And our news service has actually started, using the stuff that's in our Google Drive. They weren't using video before. Now they're asking for those kind of resources. And so we're collaborating more and trying to get it out on social media. Kind of like our process and how we do. We don't have a strategy on specifically like what stories the news service is trying to pitch. They're looking at what is also trending in the media and trying to find experts to go along with that. And then of course we're trying to keep on top of papers that are coming out as long as the faculty don't wait 5 months to tell us that it came out. And and I do have, when they mentioned that yesterday, we did have a story that we put out 5 months afterward, and the writer got fussed at by the one of the other person that asked about the story and said, "Why are you waiting on this?" And really, we were waiting on the faculty report to be finished and video. So we held it for 5 months for video, and it did really, really well. And it got on like a top 10 list for the best story of the year. So it didn't hurt it, which I find interesting for that particular story. But I think other stories would certainly hurt by that.
If there was one position that I'd like to see our shop hire for, it would be someone to do social media. I was brought on 5.5 years ago, and they said, "Get us in the newspaper." I said, "Which one?" The Greenville News. I don't know. So I'm kind of making that transition with the rest of the industry. Kind of going from focusing on getting in the newspaper, getting on a traditional broadcast to getting into to using these other channels, social media. Probably the strongest presence we have on social media would be our Facebook page. That's just because that's what I'm most fluent in. But we also have a presence on Twitter and Instagram, and so we kind of just sort of piece it together. People pick up different things, like I didn't know squares are better, so I'm told squares are better for videos on social media, so we started doing that. And like I said, we hired a videographer a year ago, so we're starting to, we're trying to use more video because those get more likes and that sort of thing, shares. And we're also trying to put a little bit more emphasis on the students. So for several years, we were doing a lot of stories on professors and the awards they won. Now we're shifting to students, and that stuff, student stories, seem to do a lot better than social media. So I'd say that's about it.
Sure. Still trying to wrap my head around having a team that large and a writer at the university level writing for you. Sorry. Digital media is obviously important, and one of the things is that one of the advantages I had when I came into the role that I'm in is there was nothing. This position didn't exist, and if you can imagine that, it didn't exist. There was a marketing coordinator whose role really was events. That was it. So the advantage that was made for me was it didn't matter what I did, it would look good. So there was no social media presence. I created a social media presence. There was no video storytelling. I started doing that, which I wasn't even asked to do, and that turned into a big wow thing for the college. And so when I did manage to convince them that I needed at least a part-time student, I was lucky to get one who was extremely social media savvy, so that really became her focus, was more of the social media posting and designing the social media ads and posts and things like that. But strategy, there really is no strategy. It's really about what's the audience for that particular story, and how do I multi-purpose a story and tailor it. Like you said, I'll do a video for Facebook that's the same video, but tailor it for Instagram or tailor it for our news releases or what have you, for media pitching. So that's the extent of our strategy for digital.
So, so in the Bay Area, we are surrounded by outstanding universities. We have UC Berkeley, UC Santa Cruz, we have Stanford. We position San Jose State as Silicon Valley's public university. And my strategy is to send up a regular pulse through Silicon Valley saying, we are here, we are here. We are the ones who supply the majority of talent to Silicon Valley. So we are here. And I also have a secondary strategy, which is to constantly let our students know that we love and support them, and we're here for them. To that end, Facebook is where we put up our student brags, and we also have Motivational Mondays, we have little quotes, and we have Throwback Thursdays. Instagram, a more curated kind of medium is where we put up kind of those feel-good pictures about our campus and about our students, lots of pictures there. I try to get out on LinkedIn about once a week just to kind of let the industry community know we're still here, and that's where we go. I'm not that comfortable on Twitter, but we have an associate dean who loves Twitter, so I just retweet and like whatever she does. And we go to our other departments, the other schools in the university, and if they're doing something cool and it has something vaguely technical going on, we like that too.
It's interesting to know that regardless of the size of the team, everyone is still on social media. We still have a voice. We're still all out there because we really kind of all have to be. So the next question that I have for you is, most people attending today at the conference are embedded within an engineering college, but there's also that central aspect of communications and marketing for the campus. So how are your relationships with Central Campus, and do they help you achieve your goals in marketing?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first on this one. Our Central Campus, we call it University Relations, and yeah, we work together. We work together on marketing. I think that if there's ever a dispute, and mostly what I do is press releases, is that battle's fought before the press release is written. Are they going to take the lead, or am I going to take the lead? I guess there's also there can be conflict at times when we feel someone should be in the press release, and maybe they don't feel the same way about it. So we make our argument, but we work together pretty well on a lot of different projects. Sometimes I'll do the press release and media outreach, and they'll organize the event. That kind of thing. It's sort of a case-by-case basis. That's the other thing. I don't know that there's a formalized system, but that's kind of how it works in Clemson.
I already touched a little on working with our central office. I do know that they do rely. They don't actually have a videographer doing news video for the central office, which is they have one team that does a little bit of stuff, but they're not focused on that. So I think they are relying on me knowing that I will make video to go with news releases. But our team isn't writing press releases at all. We have a couple writers that was one of the first things I did when I started, was to try to make the connections with the news service, and their writer, who is no longer there, who was there for like 25 years, who's like, you want to partner with me? Why? And I said, because you need video to go with your stories. Well, we've never really needed it before. And so it was one of those things that it was like convincing. Finally, in fact, we had an argument, and he said, I think all you care about is video. And I said, actually, no. I think his writing is fantastic, and also our current writer is really great too. But I say, my goal is to make them read your story. My goal is to have them read it and want to do more, because video, you can only get across so much, and it needs to be short. And so I tell everybody it's a teaser. I tell faculty, you can't get everything in a video. We can't mention every single person on the project. We can't mention every corporate partner, research partner. So they need to read that in the news release. So that's my approach when I do videos. I want people to go read the content. I want to create a content loop where people are seeing something and then going on to read more information. And so that's the strategy for working with them. And I think that it's important that we just keep staying in connection all the time with that team. So, and I'm relying on them also. I do pitch, like, here's one of our faculty, I think you should do an expert piece on them, like we were putting on an experts list. So people talk about doing experts lists. How do you figure experts out there? And also trying to convince that it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a paper for someone to be an expert. There are strategies in our news service only was to put out stories if there's a paper that's been done, or a publication. Sometimes they will do it if there's a conference. We also have battles on what dollar figure of a grant they will promote. It was $1 million, now it's like $4 million. So those are things that our faculty have trouble wrapping their head around. Why won't you promote my $200,000 grant? It's not at a certain level. And then you hear people like, there was someone from higher ed that said they don't do stuff unless it's like like 8 figures. Really, that have to be like 25 million if they're going to promote it in some outlets. So those are things we struggle with to try to get across to our.
We have a pretty good rapport with university relations, but university relations at Old Dominion University they're overwhelmed. They're a very small team. It does include a videographer, and they do have beats, if you will. But they're starting to, fortunately, the university is starting to catch on and change the model, because out of the 8 colleges within the university, only 3 of them have a position like mine. So for those of you who have 4 or more, count your blessings, because some of our colleges have none. That's starting to change, and that's a good thing. And one of the things that I think is really important is I did exactly what you did. As soon as I took this job, I met with university relations and established a pretty strong rapport with them, and they work with me pretty well in telling stories. In fact, they come to rely on the stories that come from engineering, because it gives them free time to work with other colleges. So it's been a pretty good, really well-established rapport.
Our strategic communications team for the university, they generally handle what the president's doing, or graduation, or overhauling the entire branding or website. But I do relate with them in a couple of ways. In one, they do have a press relations group, and we as colleges are not allowed to send anything out. It has to go through them. But they'll often call me and say, we need an expert in flooding or earthquakes or whatever, and so I can help that story happen. The other thing is, our strategic communications team opens up an open house, like office hours, for 2 hours at lunchtime every 2 weeks, and anyone from any college can go to them with a project in mind, and they'll give branding advice and a little bit of design advice. And that's been a great way for us to build up rapport over the years. I'll bring them things and they'll go, well, it's only an inch and a half, further down and whatever, and it works out well. And so we've built up some trust, and so that's a good thing.
I love that office hour idea. That's great. In a recent Communications Network article, the communications director for the Packard Foundation said the size of a foundation's communications department is usually a decent indicator of how committed the organization is to communications. So this question is for Paul and Erin. When you first started in your positions, you didn't have a large team. You inherited a small team, and then it very quickly and rapidly grew into a large team. So what are some of the key factors that led to that growth in your team, and how can people who are looking to grow their own teams learn from your experience?
Well, I'd say the number one factor with our team was the dean, a non-grandpa. He wanted, he knew what he wanted. He wanted a large communications team. He wanted to have all these abilities, and he knew what levers to pull and what buttons to push to get it done. When I started there, it was Thanksgiving 2013. There was my boss, Ron Grant. He had been there for, I don't know, close to 20 years, and then there was one graphic designer, Martin Beagley, and he'd been there for several years. So we've just sort of, so I was the third one on the team, and we've just kind of grown and grown and grown. And that would be the number one, convince your dean, I guess. Mine didn't need any convincing, so that would be the number one factor for us.
I came to my role with a dean that's not there right now. And the communications director hired me. She had only been there for a year, so she was new in her position. And what had happened was, like 7 or 8 years prior to that, there was a large central office in the College of Engineering. It had gotten large. There were some issues on what I know is that there were some issues on how things were being handled, and they decided to move everything to a central office at the university level, and the university would handle all of the College of Engineering communications. And then there was some thought, years went by, and they're like, maybe we should bring some of that back into the college so that we have more things that happen maybe more quickly, right? If you're relying on your central office to do it, things are not getting done as quickly. So they brought, for of course our Day of Giving, they hired a social media person to start tweeting and set up a Facebook page. So our Facebook page was set up in 2014, really late. So, but you know, it got started then, and so then once the communications director was hired after the social media person, she decided that we needed video and hired me. And then, you know, I said, I know when I came in, I actually pushed for the web team to come to communications because it actually made a lot of sense if we're going to do a whole overhaul to have communications be part of what we're doing with web design. And so just the growth of that, and our new dean is also very interested in communications. He wants a more. He wants us everywhere. And so I think that is a huge push in trying to get things out. And so leadership definitely makes a difference in what you want to get done. And I think that asking for things and sort of deciding where you're going to put your emphasis makes a difference. And looking at stats from other places. Like I feel like we have actually leveraged that Michigan had 30 to go ahead and ask for certain things based on the success of their program and how they're a ranked leader for us. And so,
I'd like to turn to the small group teams and ask Lisa and Keith, along those same lines, does that mean then that your college may not be committed to communications? And I should, full disclosure, I'm a small team, part of a small team as well. And so I'm interested in hearing whether or not you think that that is an indicator of your small teams.
Like Keith, I have a university with 8 colleges in it, and I'm one of only 2 colleges that has the full-time communicator position. The other one is business, no surprise there. So engineering and business, we make the most money for the college, for the university, and I guess that's why we have it. But I often ponder, does that mean that the College of Education or the fine arts, that they just have nothing to say? That's not possible. So I can't really answer. I don't know what their interests are.
Interestingly, our College of Business does not have a communications director. The other 2 are health sciences and education. I think, I wouldn't say it's a reflection of the commitment. Well, actually it is, because it does boil down to money. I work for a dean who you'll meet this afternoon, who she's no longer my dean, she just left. Lucky Dallas. But she came into Old Dominion coming from Virginia Tech, where College of Engineering there had a pretty large communications team, and she came here and had nothing. So she knew what she wanted and was very insistent that we find the budget to make it happen. And she did. And I think it's a matter of convincing. I guess it's a matter of convincing people who are in certain positions of the power of communications and marketing. I did mention earlier that our central also includes a pretty sizable, I shouldn't say sizable, but not sizable, but a marketing team as well that we work with in addition to their communications and media team. And the short answer is no, I don't think it's a reflection of commitment. I think it's a reflection of non-understanding or not really recognizing the value. Although the value has increased over time tremendously, particularly because of social media. For us, Instagram is by far our most student-used medium, far more than Facebook or anything else. But the university's starting to catch on, I believe. They're starting to catch up with the other universities in the state, and I think we're going to see more of it. But again, it's not a reflection of commitment as so much as understanding what they didn't know. They're a little slow to the game, I guess.
So let's go ahead and turn the conversation a little bit onto the topic of burnout. For small and large groups alike, I think we all face this challenge within our marketing teams. So a Gallup poll study that was taken in 2018 found that 67% of the 7,500 marketing employees who were surveyed felt that they experienced burnout while they were working. And that obviously can result in low productivity across the organization, high turnover, and the loss of some of the most capable talent, which many of us may or may not have experienced within our own groups. And so in a book that was published called Time, Talent, Energy, they say that burnout signals a problem not with the individual, but with the organization. So I'm curious to hear a little bit from both sides what you're doing within your organization to help prevent burnout.
I saw this question on our list and I really couldn't speak to it very well, except I can talk about what frustrates me and like being burnout for me. I mean, I love what I do. I feel very fortunate every day to get an opportunity to talk to someone who's doing some really cool stuff, tell a story about it, and hope that someone else learns about their material. So I love my job and what I do. What I think the things that are frustrating in the kind of work that we do is that even being encouraged to do stuff in social media and get stuff out to the news media, we're not always sure of our impact. We can't always tie something directly to, I made this video and then we got $1 million grant. And so for me, I wish that I had more time to like figure out a way to measure these kind of things. I feel like I don't spend enough time on analytics or having a strategy that says, if I do X, Y, Z, we're going to know that A, B, C happened. And that's where I get some of the frustration in my work. And so I would say that would be the thing that I'm a little burnt out on, like knowing that we're making, and not always tracking the progress of it and the impact. And you get these little bits of anecdotal stuff like, oh, I think I did get a grant because of that story. You know, those are things I'll go, okay, I'm going to keep working this path. This is good. But most of my satisfaction comes from, knowing that something did well and that a lot of people saw it, or that I get feedback that, a faculty member was happy with the product that we made and that they feel like we did a good job and that we supported them in their work. And so, so for me, I would say it's kind of on a lower level of burnout, but more we can do maybe to support each other, or to what I would encourage, and I keep asking my director to do this, is to like allow us to take a step back maybe on the quantity of production that we're doing, to do a quality, to make sure that we're assessing what our work is and to help us strategize on where to emphasize all of our work.
Believe it or not, even with 7 people, we're never wanting for something to do. We can always hire more people. Eventually, the PR people will have their own PR people. You know what I mean? So, but I don't really see any signs of burnout or anything. I don't know that systematized, but I can tell you that the college, you know, and it's the dean setting the example there, has really made it a good place to work. You know, where if you got a doctor's appointment, you got to pick up your kid or whatever, it's totally cool to do that. You know, and there's, you know, and it's just sort of understood. It's just sort of understood. And you know, we have some fun there too. Christmas time, we decorate the doors and have a door decorating contest and all that kind of thing. I hope that, I know there's a camera back here, but there, I mean, we have some fun. I work in a place called Riggs Hall, and we get snacks and stuff enough that we call ourselves the Riggs Pigs. So, so I think all that speaks to, you know, preventive burnout.
I love working on a campus, and every year I try to make sure that I'm going to get at least one author talk, try to visit one political science talk. I try to get to the art school to see their spring exhibits, and I go listen to music at the concert hall at lunch. Not often, but you know, that kind of keeps me remembering, oh yeah, we're on the campus tribe here, and there's a lot that's not engineering and not writing. Also, I was really lucky because I came from corporate. I was the person who showed up at the meeting exactly on time and was like fuming because you guys were wandering in a little bit later, right? And my boss would tell me over and over until it finally sunk in, we are not heart surgeons. This is not heart surgery. If you don't get this posted today, nobody's gonna know or care. It's going to be out, you know, I mean, we have things, important things that we do, but it doesn't have to be done right now. And that helped remove a layer of stress.
I've been in communications and marketing for 30 years, and this is the least stressful job I've ever had. And it's not because I'm not overwhelmed with work, because I am, especially at certain times in the year. But I think it's all about the environment that you're in. I work with great people. I have a dean or had a dean who, can you tell I'm a little bitter about her leaving? Who just, ultimate freedom, as long as you were producing what you were called to produce. I had no trouble coming and going as I pleased. And coming out of most of my career, I spent in K-12 education, and I also worked at the State Department as a press secretary, and those were burnout jobs compared to this. So I had that perspective, which made this job. And I don't tell people at the university that this is kind of a cake job in comparison. So I love it. So that's what keeps me from burning out.
Well, many of us supplement our teams with student interns. And I think it's a very popular topic. Many of us, I know I've talked to a lot of people about it since I've been at the conference just in the last day or so. And so we want to talk a little bit about how do we have our student interns, how have they proven to be a useful strategy, excuse me. And I was talking to someone at my university, and he was saying, I have 8 student interns, and he's a one-person show. And I couldn't help but think to myself, holy cow, 8 student interns. I can only imagine how much effort it takes to manage 8 student interns. How am I going to have any time to do any strategy myself? So I'd like to get a little bit of information from you all about, is there a sweet spot on the number of interns that maybe we should have, or how do we manage our interns, and how are they being a useful strategy for you?
I just want to say, I only have one. I don't have an intern, I have a grad student, and I don't think it's so much how many you have as much as the quality of what you have. Now, I got very lucky. I have a grad student whose undergrad is in marketing, and her graduate degree is in engineering management. So I got a little bit of the best of both worlds, not to mention a very diligent hard worker and someone who loves what she does. And I think it's really about choosing the right intern as opposed to how many.
So my student assistant is 20 hours a week, and I could probably use another. That would be fantastic. And it's interesting learning how to work with the student assistant. I think that it's critical to have the student perspective and voice because I don't know the fresh words, and I'm not going to pretend because I know I embarrass my daughter every time I do. So at the same time, it's so we're not allowed to hire an engineering student assistant because they might also be pulled into HR work, and they're not allowed to see files from other engineering students. So we're pulling them in from other colleges, kind of giving them a quick and dirty education on what is engineering. And sometimes they'll graduate early, or they'll go traveling all summer, or these things that happen. I wish there were a little more consistency.
I have had very limited success with getting students, and I think it's also because I don't feel like I have the time to manage them. I have had people recommended to me, and those are usually the best students. So and graduate students are also better. So I would say quality over quantity. That being said, I'm not going to stop trying to recruit students. We did something different last year. We went to the Fresher Engineering Picnic and had a table about communications, informing people what we do. We gave out some little cards on what our social media is, and we asked students if they would be interested in working. And for those particular students, I was more interested in, I made sure that I told them that their schoolwork was most important. I didn't want them to not to come in and miss out on study time. So most of the work that I gave them were the next to haves that I don't get to, or I also asked them if they would cover student events or things at night and say, can you go get pictures of this, or can you do this, high school program that's on a Saturday when I didn't want to come in anyway on a Saturday, but they have maybe some time on the weekend. So by relying on them for some things that are not time sensitive, that's where I've had some good success. But I do feel like I would love to hear, if we do Q&A at the end, I would love to hear anyone that does have a successful student internship program and what you've done, and if there's any guidelines in that, because I think that would be huge for a lot of people to see what you work on.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that too. For the first 4 years I was at Clemson, we tapped the students for our video. Our videographer was a student, and we'd get a student out of digital production arts, which was a program where you can learn how to make animation for movies and video games and that sort of thing. And what I found is that the students could edit beautifully, but they didn't know what questions to ask, how to be on message and all of that stuff. So what I found is that if they were doing a video, so was I. So it's been nice to we got this videographer about a year ago. His name is Erin Sanders. He came from a local TV station, so we can just say, "Parent, can we go do this video?" And then it's there about a week later, So that it's really great. We don't currently have any students. We have had a graphic designer, a student graphic designer, and she was great. I think quality is a good point. With Michelle, we could say, "Here's a project," and you get it back in a way that was pretty clean. And so I look forward to hearing how that works out.
So we're seeing with even just come on the floor review that there are a lot of ideas about team size, and is there a right team size, is there a wrong team size? Just some information about that. Amazon's lead has said that he has a 2-pizza rule. Does anyone know about this? Where if you cannot feed the team with 2 pizzas, then it is too big. So that is one school of thought. And then there is this Remo Man effect that we recently learned about, that a scientist had asked a group of people as part of an experiment to perform just a very simple task, just pull on a rope. And so when there was one person and they were pulling on this rope, they were pulling at 110%, pulling it as hard as they possibly could. And then when you had multiple people who were pulling on the rope, they were giving about 85%. They were all obviously doing the task, but not necessarily at that 100%. And so that kind of speaks again back to that burnout, that if you constantly have that one person who is pulling that rope, eventually they're not going to be able to hold on any longer. Yet at the same time, if maybe you're too big, how big is too big maybe for that scenario? So the question I'm posing to you is there a right number of people on a team, or maybe a range that might make up the best team?
I'm going to go back to quality. and then as opposed to size. Would I like to have more? Absolutely. I would love to have something more than a 20-hour grad student, but I don't want to have more just for the sake of having more. I want to be able to have a team that is well-rounded, but also a team that's willing to learn. I've had teams in the past as large as 16, and one of the things I was really, and I learned this from being on teams prior to this that helped me learn, and that is not to stalemate anyone into one task. You're a photographer, but maybe you should learn about video. You're a videographer or a graphic designer, maybe you should learn how to write ad copy. And teams that I've worked with have always appreciated that. And I think it's important to find people that are not only good at what they do, but they're willing to continue to learn. And that's what I think matters more than the size.
I don't know if there's a perfect size. I can say I don't know. Probably when we crossed over the number 5, that's when communication between us became more and more important. You know, I don't know if 5's the threshold, but at least in our experiences. So.
Okay.
I'll add one thing. The one thing that I always wish when I do put out some kind of media piece for a story is that I want it to look as amazing as possible. I want people to understand what the story is, what the engineering is behind stuff. And I know that if I had more, like a scientific illustration, an animation, a more detailed video, that maybe more people would reach it and understand it, or it might give someone at another university or a partner and go, oh, well, I can build on this. So I feel like some of the things that we do in communications to try to get this information across and to build more connections with people would be helpful if we can communicate all in different ways. And so that's the weakness that I feel like if the story is not well-rounded enough, or has the media that lets multiple people learn about that particular topic, we're not reaching quite as many people. And so that's the richness that I wish that I had in every single piece that I did. And when we get that in the stories, I get really excited. I'm like, look, we've done a really great job of explaining this. We've given multiple paths for people to get into this particular kind of material. And so that would be the one thing that I would look for, like if I was going to branch out my team. And I wish maybe even if we just had a freelancer instead of a freelancer I could rely on for certain kinds of tasks, that would help improve our team instead of just having to hire someone for that. But those kinds of people, the quality we were saying is that's important to find out and to be able to have that part of what you're doing.
Erin, I think that goes right into what the last question is that I have for you all, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, is that if you were to go back to your office after this conference and your dean walked up to you and said, I have fantastic news for you, you can have one more hire, what area do you want it to be in?
I already said I wanted a full-time photographer. I feel like we could put them to work. I think, we talked about social media. You mentioned Instagram is like #1 for you. I feel like that is also a part of that. I mean, the storytelling with photography is really important. And if the photographer could also be an illustrator, that would be great. That doesn't happen, but I think anything to improve our imagery. So it's scientific illustrator or photographer, that would be something I would want to just keep giving people a different way to get into the content.
Yeah, I would say social media. I'm a former newspaper person trying to muddle through it. So with mixed success, so I'd say social media.
Images, graphic design with some video experience.
Anybody? No, I would say graphic designer is probably what I would want most right away, because I'm trying to do it all and I just get by.
All right, let's go ahead and open it up for questions.
A couple of you mentioned at the beginning that you, in your departments, and probably any of your centers as well, you have people doing communications. We have the exact same thing where it's all levels of some have communications training and background, and some have never had any kind of communications background and are tasked with doing content for the website, doing their newsletter. How have you, we struggle with trying to provide resources and guidance for those folks in our college, what have all of you done to try to make it more consistent and help them?
If you talk about web in particular? Or?
No, I would say anything. You know,
Anything.
a lot of our departments and centers, someone's tasked with, you do the department website, you do the newsletter, you do, you know, all these different things,
Right.
sometimes even events, and we are there to support them, but we can't do their stuff.
I couldn't force them to do it, but when I arrived in this position, I found that the departments were doing their own thing, and some of it was just absolutely horrendous. But I approached them from the standpoint of, you know, we're really trying to put the College of Engineering and Technology on the map. We want to make our brand consistent. So I approached it from an educational standpoint. So now that they're doing their newsletters and they're running them past me, I mean, like I really needed something else to worry about, but it gave me a level of, it helped me establish that rapport I was talking about with each department, because they trusted. I think it was a sigh of relief for them that somebody was going to look at their stuff, because some of these department newsletters, department brochures were just absolutely in bad shape. So I took it on as a project, not to try to do it all myself, although I do a lot of it for them, but was to work with someone in their department to make sure the content was consistent, make sure the look was consistent, and work with them on how to create a social media post so that it's more appealing. I even had a photography workshop that I hosted and invited anybody who wanted to come on how to take good pictures, because that was part of the problem too. But I think the bottom line is that obviously I can't do it all, but was to try to establish right at the beginning. And again, I was a new sheriff in town they'd never seen it, so it made it somewhat easy for me to say, this is how we're going to do it from now on, and it worked.
The admins in our departments, they're the ones generally tasked with keep the website, keep the social media going, and I encourage them every semester, let your student assistants do that, get someone, because they just, it's natural to them as breathing. I also tell my department chairs, try to tell them every semester, we really support your outreach to your alumni. The alumni want to hear from you, they don't want to hear from us, but we're here to support you. Please run your newsletters by us so we can just check them before they go out.
We put together 2 newsletters a year for our departments, and then of course, all the content we generate that's available to the departments. What else? One idea that I had just sitting here. I wonder at some point we ought to do a kind of a lunch and learn kind of thing for our department people. I don't know if anybody has ever done that kind of thing. So Keith's saying yeah. So that's maybe something something I ought to do. But yeah, I'm probably leaving out a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, I'll end there.
We have a engineering communications group that entails all the people that are doing communications across engineering. So we have started doing like those lunch and learn things. Not every topic is relevant to every single communication representative from the each of the schools, but we've made it optional. Like we've done like a little meeting up front and then saying you can stay for lunch if you wanted to participate or not. So making that optional. We have an email list that I like people to share like tips that they've gotten, or I see something that might be worthy of sharing, and I will send that out. I know that I feel like we can do more for the communications staff, but I think staying connected, meeting monthly is really important to just let people know that we're there and share ideas. I know that for some of the teams that are smaller, that we have done work for them and just filled in for them in some of the ways, because I provide resources there. And is anyone here from Colorado State? Because if anyone looks at, go look at Colorado State's internal, their social team. I went to a workshop with them at the AMA. They have a great newsletter where they give tips to all their communication staff. So they're the social team that's at the university level sends out a bunch of helpful stuff, and they're a great team. So if you want to look at something that you can share with me. Oh, okay.
And then they have two other folks under that. And I think they're also looking to grow another one or two more people. But they do. They have, I think it's, I can't remember the web link, but you can easily look that up. And they put it all on LinkedIn too, if you follow them.
Yeah, CSU Social, I know that I've gotten tips from them that I share out. They do like a blog on communications. I think that's helpful. If anyone else has any suggestions for that, I mean, maybe we could figure out how to share those kinds of resources, because I don't mind sharing someone else's work to trying to do training tips, but I think like just keeping that kind of information, if you know that someone needs some help in one area, to just provide that kind of support from them. I think that's all that we can do, because we can't control the budgets of those departments or schools. So
I saw a couple hands up back here.
Hey guys, so Adlock Moss, Florida Atlantic University. So I have this question. It's really coming from listening to everyone, not just you guys, but everyone throughout the conference. And it kind of stood out to me. So I'm super new at Florida Atlantic. I'm coming as the Assistant Director of Design and Marketing. So my background is art, right, and design and creativity. So I have a Bachelor's of Fine Art and a Master's of Animation and Sound Design, right? And I'm noticing that for, I guess, one of the main things that we're trying to tackle is, you know, communicating and new and innovative ways to do that through video and photography and all that stuff. But something that stood out to me, and I just have this broad question, not just to you, maybe just to everyone as well. I noticed that we're plugging in interns and students to handle like videography and photography and design. Something that if you look throughout the industry outside of education, these are very sought after positions, and they seek like highly skilled videographers and designers and illustrators. So how come it seems as though it's a hurdle to get those really trained and developed creators into, I guess, what we're trying to do. So like why do you think that is? Why are we plugging in students, not to downplay the students, but obviously, like we've touched on, they may not be as polished as we would need or like to get these creative things out there. So why do you think that's a hurdle for you guys?
Budget. They're much less expensive, but then you also an issue of quality, I think. And there are good students. I mean, that there's some of them that are working other places on campus. I haven't been successful in finding people that would want to be with us from freshman to senior year. And most of ours, we're targeting people that are doing engineering stuff. And I think that I do prefer to have engineering students be on my team. Some of them are coming from high schools with video production teams and communications teams, and they've been doing social. I know one student, he started his own company at a school and then in a startup. So we have these amazing students coming in, but they come in and they're going to be engineers, and so I can't ask that of them. And so I think that trying to get those student teams that are available. Also having a student that's a perspective that at a university is important to have the student tell a story or be part of that. That's why I want students to be there, because I think that they're living that they're living in the moment of being a student, and they can share that story as part of their production. But I feel like that most of it is about
I'm going to come at it from a slightly different perspective. I do believe the student voice is essential in getting those social media posts up, but I will not trust the design of my magazine to a student. We hire out and we spend a lot of money on that. and that's just part of our budget of the year. And it's probably one of the biggest parts of our budget, because I know that the design has to be so well thought out and from such a deep expertise in how we want to influence our alumni to relate with us.
I have to agree. I'm of the mindset that students are great at understanding that audience, but if I had the money, which I don't, because it is a budget issue, I would much prefer to go out and get a seasoned videographer or a seasoned video storyteller or a seasoned graphic designer. I did go out once since I've been here to get a graphic animator to do something I needed for video, and it was only a one project thing, but I would not have trusted that to a student. I'm fortunate, again, I have a marketing grad student who's very good at social media. She's also a pretty decent graphic designer, but she has limitations, and I would go out if I had the money.
I just don't have a whole lot of experience with this, so I don't have a whole lot to add. The only thing I'd say is I'd echo what I heard here, and yeah, like what I said earlier was if the student's doing something, then I'm doing it too a lot of the time, you know, and that's okay, you know, and you know, I think there probably needs to be an acknowledgement from us that, you know, it's that we're an educational institution and we can be part of it, you know, we can be there to teach a little bit, help with those soft skills. So anyway, that's it.
Are there any questions over here? I thought I saw some hands over here as well. All over there. Oh.
Hi, I'm Colleen Carroll from Ohio University. I'm wondering if you can speak to what connections you have with the student recruitment function. Are you totally separate? Do you help with strategy? If you have a team, do you create content or creative for them?
I do work with our career services team, and I treat them kind of the way I treat the departments. They pretty much just run things by me to make sure they're compliant in terms of graphic look and the brand. Only on a couple of occasions have I done anything for them, because they do a pretty good job, fortunately, because I don't have a lot of time to give them. But I do work with them pretty regularly, particularly when they're planning an event or something like that, so I can help them get media.
I do not work with student recruitment, but I do try to help my dean recruit faculty. And our current challenge is recruiting faculty that reflect the diversity of our student body.
I don't know that, well, we just do a lot, we've been doing a lot more stories about students and the student experience and some of the great students we have. So if you want to call that student recruitment, then that would be student recruitment. For a long time, we emphasized, you know, the professors were doing and the awards they were winning. And about 6 months ago, we sort of switched it around and started doing more press releases, more videos about students. And it's been a lot of fun. You know, students kind of open up their lives a little bit more than the professors. They kind of have less to lose, I guess. You know, or I don't know if that's why, but anyway, they're just young and exuberant, and you can get into some of the fun things they do. You know, in addition to their classwork. So that's sort of the student recruitment piece for us.
We have a separate office called the Office of Future Engineers, and they're like a machine, and they do all of their student recruitment. But we definitely, I have met with the student organizations. We have a group that is the President's Council for every student board, and I've met with them to ask about what they'd like to see more in our social media. I think that's been really successful in giving me insight into what our current students are looking for in our content, and something that I'd like to give them following our social now and also when they become alums. And most of them ask for more student stories. They wanted to see that, and so I definitely try to do a mix of that in the social that we have. And so I think that could help with student recruitment. I also do promote any programs that are targeting at high school that maybe our minority engineering program or our
Craig Smith, Arizona State University, and this question's for Erin, or maybe others in the room that have a large team. I've noticed with companies, they'll spend years decentralizing and then centralizing, and then the answer is always the other thing. And if you're looking at like a College of Engineering and take away the university layer, you know, it feels like someone either believes in one or the other. You know, centralized is the way to go, or decentralized is the way to go. Are there lessons or beliefs or things that you've seen or heard over careers where someone believes one or the other and for specific reasons on what works better? Is it the departments, having someone in the departments or the schools, or having a large centralized team that tries to service out from there?
I think our college is so big that it just didn't make sense anymore. We were on a massive expansion of faculty. We hired like 150 faculty in the time that of when the year before I started. So it was like a 3-year plan to hire a bunch of faculty, and you just can't communicate their work and let the central office be in charge of all the marketing for that. I think that's what was coming down to it. We needed more support getting stuff in the media, and part of recruitment. That was why a marketing communications director was hired. I think personally, I would love to take every single communicator that is dedicated in the schools and have them sit in our office so that we can rely on the strengths of every person on that team. But you know, they need to be there. Like, I think that having where you have a person that has a theme or a focus is really valuable, that they are an expert in that particular discipline in that particular school. But knowing that they are all at different levels of expertise, that's hard, because you see some things that are strong out of that particular school. I mean, they're all doing a good job, but you know, some things are stronger than others. And wouldn't it be nice if we like took the little bits of the graphic person who does amazing stuff on social and have them do something for like 3 schools instead of 1, and then let the really great writer do all the writing things. So by having a 1-person band in every school, you know, it's hard. So I think that that would be the one way that I would centralize it. But I think that it was just too much at our time, and I think that it is working out well for us to be able to have a larger office. I don't know if that will change if we have a different kind of administration. So that's a big plan.
I'm just curious, within the writing function in your shop, what is the writing product, the writing output that you find absorbs the lion's share of your time and focus? And I'm really interested in how that may or may not vary depending on the size of the team involved.
By far, for me, I do a monthly interactive newsletter. But because I'm a 1-person shop, I multi-purpose a lot. So most of those stories are stories that I've also pitched or going to pitch. And they're stories that I've shared with the university. A lot of them are video stories, so I embed the videos in the newsletter. So that newsletter probably takes up most of my writing time, in addition to an occasional speech for the dean or something like that.
Well, I haven't hired out the writing of my magazine, so I write that thing head to tail, and that takes a lot. That takes all my summer and winter vacations, and but I love it. I love it. That's when I get to go get the really interesting stories. Then we have maybe 8 to 10 web stories over a semester, and we can fill our newsletter with links to those and links to other things going on. The dean's remarks, and I don't know if this is true for you as well, I found that once I kind of essentially wrote them the first year, even though there are always new events happening, you can kind of go back and tweak a little bit, but then there's a little bit of a challenge to keep those fresh year after year. But I love that cycle. I love that cycle.
I do the bulk of the writers factual, but punch it up a little bit, and then social media posts. So I guess they would probably be one.
exception of the news service doing our engineering press releases, we hire all of our writing out. We have no one in our shop to do writing, since it's all freelancers. I mean, I write social media posts, but that would be something if I had another person. I would love a social, actually, I would love a social media person who also wrote short copy, but we're hiring all of our writing out, and that is a difference not having a writer in your house, in your shop. But most of that is happening because they're doing it on the weekends or the evenings. We have a lot of stuff that happens off hours to get writing done.
All right, well, thank you so much to all of the panelists